Assalamualaikum and hi. Welcome everyone to another session with Sekolah Crypto. My name is Muhammad Ihsan and today with us we have our validator, Coldchain. Hi Coldchain, how are you? Hello.
Hi, sorry about that. Hey, I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Amazing. So before we start, I would like to invite everyone who are watching our video now to like and follow our Facebook, our Telegram, our Twitter channel, and don't forget to subscribe to our content. It's free, it's public, it's for everyone. So today we are going to start with a small prayer. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma ftah alayna hikmataka wanshur alayna min khazaini rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Rabbi shrah lana sudurana wa yassir lana umurana wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisanina yafqahu qawlina. So ladies and gentlemen, in a blockchain validators play a very important role. They ensure that the sanctity of the blockchain, the data that is recorded is always correct. And hence, we must always learn from our validator on their role and what has been done by them to improve the security of blockchain. Today we have Coldy, one of the prominent bare metal validator from the Cosmos ecosystem, particularly from Osmosis. So before we go further into our discussion, do you mind sharing it with us? How do you start into the journey of becoming a validator? Like, where do you start? Where you're from? Who do you know first? And what makes you become interested in becoming a validator in the Cosmos ecosystem? Yeah, the stage is yours, Colton.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here and talk to you guys. Um, yeah, I really did want to come and talk about how I got started because I am a newer validator in the Cosmos ecosystem and well, validating at all. I've only been doing this for about 5 months now. Started in January. Um, and so I wanted to come talk to you guys, maybe see if there's people here that would be interested in validating on their own because it's really something that anyone can do once they learn how. Um, so my first interest in the Cosmos ecosystem was actually as an investor. I became a cosmonaut when I staked 7 Atom on February 12th, 2021, just a year ago. And this was actually a couple of days before the airdrop snapshot for Osmosis, which is really what got me into the whole Cosmos ecosystem. Um, and then on February 18th, that's when the Stargate upgrade went live and IBC interblockchain communication was fully enabled on Cosmos chains. In my opinion, that was one of the most historic moments in the cryptosphere, and I honestly feel honored to have been around during those times and participated in some of these momentous changes. Basically, um, the debut of IBC that really created like a renewed interest in the Cosmos SDK and Tendermint consensus core. Um, because the dream of Cosmos is to use standardized tools to build app chains that can interconnect and intercommunicate with IBC. Um, I mean, that's really inspiring to me because uh, it's a whole new paradigm, in my opinion, for blockchains to communicate. And since that time, just about a year and a half ago, over 25 mainstream Cosmos chains have launched, and there are many, many more in the pipeline. I'm hearing of like new Cosmos chains every day almost. And this is the exact same environment that I joined the Cosmos. So I'm just like amazed by the innovation, the cooperation, and like the work on the technology that's being done here. So I really just wanted to learn everything that I could about Cosmos, about Tendermint, IBC, and basically validating all this stuff. So inevitably, I learned about proof of stake and about how validators are vital to securing these networks. Um, Basically, the role of a validator is to run a validator node that signs blocks and keeps the blockchain going. But really, it's beyond that. Um, Validators, I mean, some of them positively contribute to the community. They're coders. They provide support to the to community members. They run communities. They hold events. Um, they organize and um, they give back to the community basically. Um, I mean that's ideally an ideal situation. What they should be doing beyond just doing their best to secure the network with the best top of the line security practices and best redundant practices. And that's actually something else that I wanted to talk about today, which was my journey learning about how to effectively operate validator nodes because as you can guess, it's not as easy as just running a Bitcoin miner, for example. It takes a little bit more than just setting something up and just letting it run. Um, so my first validator was on the Chihuahua chain. I launched that in January, and I'd like to highlight that experience because I made some mistakes along the way. There were definitely some things that I could have done better, and well, I'll just get into it. Um, I started out by renting a dedicated server. That's a server that is a physical server located in a data center that a company will lease to you for your private use. Um, Now, although the server is leased to you, it's physically owned and hosted by the data center, so they have technically have access to it and all the information that's contained on it. So, just a caveat, I don't really like the fact that validators use dedicated servers and host their keys on them because that allows whoever has access to that server to have access to your keys. And you know that in crypto we say not your keys, not your coins. The same thing goes for validators, not your keys, not your node. Um, but that's how I started out. I started out on a dedicated server, rented from a company, and I set up some Sentry nodes on virtual private servers. So a Sentry node is a full node that isolates the validator from the full network. The validator is only allowed to connect to the Sentry nodes, and those Sentry nodes are allowed to connect to the broader network at large. That just protects your validator from being, DDoSed, hacked, uh, and or just anything from going wrong. Um, the more operational security you have, the better, really. There haven't been really many cases of uh, nodes being attacked outside of testnet, but with when you're securing this much money, you got to be careful. Not necessarily on Chihuahua, of course, but Uh, now, unfortunately, it wasn't long before I had my first problems as a validator. So I came to find out that the server provider had not set up my server correctly, and I didn't have full root access to it. So they had given me a workaround to work with, and they told me that they would fix it. But before it had been fixed, I had a situation where I lost access to the server, as in I couldn't log into it, but it was still running.
That's bad. That's
So
really
yeah, it's bad. So I contacted the provider, and they told me, okay, we're gonna fix it. To fix it, they took the server offline without notifying me, and my validator went offline, causing me to miss blocks. And now I'm at risk of being slashed, and my delegators are at risk of losing, 0.1% of their tokens. Um, at this point, I was like, oh wow, I'm just starting out, and I'm in a bad situation already. So luckily, luckily, I had been using sentries. So what that means is that I was able to contact the server provider, and I canceled my contract I got a refund, and I told them to turn off the server and erase the disks. Now, if I didn't have the sentries, that would have been very risky because I don't know if they would have turned it back on inadvertently and caused me to double sign if I tried to set up another node. So what I did was I told the sentries to refuse connection to the validator. That way, even if it was turned back on accidentally, it would not be able to connect to the network. Then I could safely set up another node and move the validator key there to continue signing, prevent getting jailed, and get out of this bad situation, basically. And incidentally, this isn't the only bad experience I've had with a dedicated server provider. I did try to go to another provider, and they basically took delayed a month giving me the server and never even delivered it at all. So I canceled that one as well. These experiences, as well as just generally observing about other people's practices around the ecosystem and like bad practices, I'm saying, kind of pushed me to want to run my own equipment. So I actually operate right now 3 servers out of my house. And I have another server that I own in a data center in Austria. Um, I would not ever validate or place validator keys on a rented server or a VPS ever again. That's just something that I will not do, but that's not a line that a lot of other validators have, to be honest.
I
Um,
to ask a question here. Before you become a validator, do you have any background in the information technology? Like, are you a data scientist or are you a software engineer? I mean, like, do you have an IT background?
well, actually, I was going to discuss that too, but I don't. Um, I'm like an old school uh, hacker, I guess.
Okay.
uh, I used to mess around, just mess around, with computers, and stuff like that. But I don't have any specific training. I was a locksmith until a year ago. I worked on locks, safes, stuff like
Oh,
that. Yeah. So that's where my security mindset comes from, because I'm all about making everything secure. But I really didn't have any like actual IT experience. I don't code much. I'm learning now. Um, but basically everything that about validating that I needed to know, I picked up along the way. Um, Really, the thing that I would compare validating to is being a systems administrator. If you can operate Linux and you can operate a server effectively, and you have like a basic understanding of the command line and networking, like you'll do well. It's really just about building a network and securing your server. Um, it's very, I mean, the blockchain is digital technology. It's everything is applicable almost. Even IBC itself is just like an implementation of TCP IP, which is like the internet protocol. It's really just an internet um, of blockchains that allows blockchains, which are individual computers, to communicate to each other. Um,
okay.
and
Yeah.
I've Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. And I've taught um, a couple of people to validate as well. Um, and one of them had like absolutely no experience doing any of this stuff whatsoever. And they were able to get a node running on the Evmos testnet within like a couple days of starting out. And another person who had been experienced running like a home media server, where he was streaming, TV shows and movies. He was able to use that experience to get started, and now he's validating on, I think, 3 mainnets now. So it's definitely something. I just saw a tweet the other day where someone was complaining that you have to be like a very advanced, like computer, like coder person, to get into validating. And I just tweeted back at them like, no, you don't. you really don't. You just have to be willing to learn, and yeah, you really just have to be willing to learn, because that's what it's about.
Okay, so I want to ask a question. Investing and becoming a teacher in the Cosmos ecosystem and blockchain in general is something a lot of people do it. Me myself, I'm not in any way having any background in IT, and yet I'm a blockchain teacher. So say, but validating is something else because you have to invest your money in it. You have to invest your time. Like you said, this is it's not like a Bitcoin mining where you just set up your machine and forget about it. There's a lot of dedication and time needed to validate on the Cosmos blockchain as a whole. So,
Mhm.
how much money have you spent to start validating bare metal on the Cosmos ecosystem? And how does your time spent have changed? Do you like spend every day looking at your validating machine, or do you have to wake up at night to do some upgrade? Can you share on that?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of costs, it widely varies. I mean, there are people that run like very minimal costs, running like VPS, where they're just, running one node per network, and just paying like one flat fee per month. Um, but for me, I had some startup costs. I've purchased two of my servers. The third one I had already, but the first server that I bought was $6,000. That one is located in Austria.
There's a lot of
And yes, and well, I had help buying that one because I am using it to host some bots um, that my team built for Osmosis. Um, and so they helped us pay for that one. Um, then I have another server at my house where I run my validators on. That's actually like a gaming PC that I built, cost around $2,000. And a second server that I'm using as a validator, that one costs $500. So those were like my startup costs. And then I have, monthly costs for internet and power. My commercial internet connection to my house costs $200 per month. And I am running some VPS Sentry nodes, and I'm paying about 100 per month for those. So my ongoing costs are around like 500 per month. Um, so, ideally your income is going to be covering that. Otherwise, you're not making any money. Um, but I mean, you could be spending a lot more than that. You could be spending a lot less than that. It's not really about how much you spend. I think it's about your practices, I would say. The top validators are obviously making like a ton of money. And that doesn't necessarily reflect whether they're reinvesting in the network or not. You know what I mean? They could just be, taking all that and putting it in their pocket. Um, but for me, I run relayers. So I'm relaying IBC transactions between Osmosis and like Cosmos, Evmos, and Bitsong, some other chains as well. Um, I'm also my company, which is called Interblock. We're actually working on, well, we were until this kind of downturn. We'll finish it eventually, but we were working on a new block explorer for any Cosmos chain that will, if you guys are familiar with Etherscan, it'll be more like an Etherscan clone. You'll be able to like label accounts, have a lot more searchable history and stuff like that. Like the block explorers right now are just trash, in my opinion. MinScan is okay, but it shows you 5 transactions per page. You got to click a million times, whatever. Uh, yeah.
Okay.
So
So I want to ask a question. As we know that the problem with proof of stake, there will always be a form of centralization. So
yeah,
uh, some of the top validators nearly in all the Cosmos ecosystem chain has not been the friendliest to the blockchain. A lot of them dump coins. They do not do contribution to the chain, whereas ironically, those of the smaller validators are the ones who are doing IBC relaying, and sometimes they're always going to get kicked out of the active set. So my question is, knowing that IBC, when you are processing IBC transaction, does not make you money, what motivates you to continue doing it? And number two, what do you do to always keep yourself in the active set? Because it's always about being days in numbers before you get kicked out when you are not the main validators. So what do you do? How do you overcome all these challenges?
Well, that's great questions. I wish I had the answers. uh, so it's difficult. There are really validators who do good work. They contribute a lot to the ecosystem, and they're just really showing up for the chain, and they just get kicked out like that. When you're at the bottom of the set, it's difficult because really with one of the more popular chains, an investment group or a venture capital group could easily put up a validator and kick out one of the bottom of the set. And there's really nothing you can do about that because you're trying to fight against somebody with money basically. uh, it's difficult. I'm only on two chains that I would consider like um, um of the upper tier chains, which is Osmosis and Evmos. Those are the ones where I would be concerned about getting kicked out, as you say. And really, to be honest with you, I was uh, ready to give up on Osmosis about a couple weeks ago because I was stuck at the bottom of the set, and I was actually helping assist another validator, so I was considering combining my operations with him, and just shutting down my validator because I wasn't able to stay competitive. But thankfully, someone had staked like a large amount of Osmo with me, and they were able to keep me active. So they kept me out of that. So sometimes it just takes like an angel to come and save you. But um, yeah, I mean, if I had the answer to that, I would tell you because I would be doing it myself. Um, other than searching for large investors, I'm not sure how people are doing it. It's all about advocacy. It's all about contributing to the ecosystem and getting that knowledge out there and having it reflected.
So
I think
for
that there's
the,
some.
for
Go ahead.
those listening, please stay with Coldy. They are one of the bare validators, and yeah, they are doing excellent job in it. Seriously.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's some smaller validators who have just started out over the past year or so that have gotten that big recognition, and they really deserve it. I think, in my opinion, that there's certain people out there that really do deserve it. Um, now,
Okay, let's just change the air a bit. Let's just not talk about cause and being out of the active set. Let's go something different. You
sure.
have been awarded the moniker the smallest bare metal on the Cosmos ecosystem. I mean, you have very small picture of your cigarette-like size validator before, right? So at the
Yep.
same time, I figure out that you have been playing with a lot of equipment. So generally, what are the equipment you would advise to validate, for example, on the osmosis chain? Do you think this small validating machine has any benefit over the bigger ones? I mean, like, what is your recommended minimum set?
Well, for osmosis specifically, osmosis is very resource intensive. So you can operate on a wide range of servers, but it's really just about the minimum specs. You really should have like at least a 4 to 8 core CPU, at least 64 gigabits of RAM, and like a 1 terabyte SSD or NVMe disk. Um, Now that uh, small machine that you're referring to, that's like a single board computer. That's actually a relayer. I was running the relayer software on that small machine. So what that is doing is it's connecting to the full nodes and relaying IBC transactions. Actually, I'm not doing that with that machine anymore. I've repurposed that one, and now it's being used for what's called a remote signer. And what that is something that's really interesting. It it's a way to keep your validator keys off of the node. You can it's imagine it as like a imagine it as it's like a hardware wallet that's holding your validator keys. The validator node, well, the full node will come and ask the wallet for the key on each block to sign it. And so with that, with a setup like that, you can use multiple nodes. You can use redundant nodes in on rented servers or on VPS without the validator keys ever touching those servers. So that's something that I'm actually going to be exploring a lot more. I don't think I have. Well, maybe I can talk about it a little bit more, but that's something that's really important and something that I've gotten into recently. If I had used this back when I was validating Chihuahua the first time, I would have never had those issues with the dedicated server because I could have just easily switched to another server without worrying about my keys at all. Now,
I,
in terms of equipment,
I want to ask
sorry.
some. It seems like being a validator is kind of technical. Lots of coding knowledge need to be put in. Seriously, where do I read about all this? Where can we learn about how to become a validator?
Well, docs.osmosis.zone. They have the docs there about installing and running a node. You can search up the Cosmos SDK docs. And you can search up the Tendermint docs. They really have the basic information that you need to know, but really the best way to learn is just to get started. I think there's a lot of test nets available where you can get free tokens. There's no economic risk. You can run the node, on your machine at home. You can run it on a VPS that you rent for $5 a month, and you can really just get into it. It really does sound technical, but it's really about how technical you want to get with it. Really, you can start out basic, running one node. That's how everyone starts. You're running one node on a main net with no sentries, blah blah blah, and then you add some sentries, and then you find out about the remote signer, and then you find out about more advanced architecture. It's really about how far you want to take it, I guess, because obviously it's not going to be economical for someone who's not making a lot to be able to be spending a lot, basically. And yeah, I mean, I really recommend that if anyone wants to get started, you can always DM me on Telegram at Coldchain one. I can recommend you a testnet you can check out and how to get started. And the other validators as well. They're usually great. They're usually friendly, sociable people who just if you have a question, just ask them. They'll help out, like in the validator discords, basically.
Thank you very much for the offer. Apparently, I think that's a very good advice for the newbie. If they want to start out, they can start with testnet. They can ask you out. So there's a question here. Do you think we from the Malaysian community, or for example, Osmosis Malaysia, should we start our local Malaysian validator? Do you think our role is essential in the Osmosis ecosystem?
I don't think I don't think your role has to be essential in the Osmosis ecosystem to start a validator. I think that if you want to secure the network, if you want to do your own thing and you want to be decentralized, like I mean, I would say go for it. Like there's a map right now. I'll have to find it later, but it's of the node locations in for the Osmosis network. I mean, I would say like 70% of them are in Europe, and probably the other, like 25% are in North America. There's hardly none. Well, there's none in South America. There's none in Africa. There's very few in Asia, and none, I think one in Australia or something. So I mean, I'm all for it. I would support you guys. It's all about decentralization. So that's what you guys would be contributing, and I mean that's as important as what it is.
Because we from Malaysia, we have been talking about starting out our validating system for so long, ever since we start Osmosis Malaysia. But I think nobody really has the guts or the motivation to start. But yeah, I think this is a good start. Maybe someone who are listening to this, they can just try out. We reach out to you guys and maybe connect to you. So let us go back to the discussion. Um, let's say someone wants to do it. Someone, okay, I want to buy some equipment. Do you think how much money should they prepare before starting up a validating device?
Well, it depends, I would say. Um, your the location that you're validating is important. You're gonna want to have, you know, as close to 100% uptime as possible. So that means your electricity has to be stable and your internet has to be stable. And sometimes that might mean having like a redundant internet connection, um, or even like a backup generator or um, such redundancies. So uh, probably the most cost-effective way would be to host a server in a data center. That way you're paying a monthly fee for electricity and internet connection to the data center, and they're taking care of like your redundant connections. So a decent server to validate osmosis, for example, could cost you around 2,000, and the hosting really just depends on your local rates. So I mean, you could really get started for that, for $2,000 or less. It really depends on what how much you can get the equipment for. And I can give you guys a full spec sheet of what you need.
And that 2,000 is excluding, of course, the number of coins you're holding, right? That depends on the number of people who are actually validating with you. Am I correct? Delegating to you, sorry.
Yes, good point. So yeah, I'm not considering the number of tokens at all in that cost. You definitely need tokens to validate. So on any Cosmos chain, there's a maximum amount of validators that are in the active set. Those are the ones who are actually validating and earning rewards. Now you need to have more than that minimum amount, or you need to have more than the last validator in the set in order to be active.
Okay,
So,
I have, yeah, continue, sorry.
oh, I was just going to say, so on Osmosis currently, that is about 115,000 coins, and the Osmo price is currently 78 cents. So it's a good upfront investment that you need to get into it. But what I always tell people is that you don't need to have all the coins yourself. You just need to have people that are willing to delegate with you and support you. And I mean, that's not always something that's easy. And you know, sometimes stuff happens. People got to undelegate and stuff like that. So um, it's really, I would say it's really something where you want to be fairly confident that you're going to be remaining active, especially if you're doing it like as a group. And the other thing I would say is setting up a validator as a group is also somewhat challenging because the validator keys aren't really meant to be held by multiple people. Um, so it just takes like a bit of extra planning to create a multi-signature account to control the validator and stuff like that.
Okay, so number one, I want to clarify. You said that to break even, so to speak, on the Osmo chain, you need at least 115,000 Osmo to be delegated to you. Is that correct?
Um, Not to break even, but to earn any income, yes.
Okay, so that's kind of a big amount of osmosis. So the thing is that when you become a validator, you are essentially a bank, and your delegators are stakeholders who invested in your bank. So when
Definitely.
whenever you as a validator you get slashed, you get jailed, that means your delegator also are losing money. How do you feel about it when that happened, and how do you prevent that from happening?
Well, thankfully, I have never been slashed. I've come very close 2 times. I was within hours of being slashed, but I was able to recover both times. Um, these days, I have more redundant systems in place, and I I can say I can't say 100% that I will not be slashed, but I have taken every precaution that I can, and I've gone beyond what most validators are doing in order to prevent such thing from happening. Now, of course, it always can happen. So I would consider. I mean, if I was slashed, which is usually only a 0.001% penalty anyway, I would just pay that back to my delegators because it's the right thing to do. Um, Now there are some validators that advertise like slash protection or guaranteed 100% slash protection, stuff like that. And I mean that's fine for them to to advertise, I guess, but I don't think validators should really be advertising that they're going to get slashed. Uh, there's really basic steps that you can take to prevent that from happening, and there are really people that do get slashed too many times. There are some validators that are just on too many chains. It's hard for one person or a small team to even monitor that many, 20, 25 chains for upgrades, for, issues, anything like that. And you really do have to be on top of it. So in terms of, so the other thing is, in terms of slashing, there is a higher slash than the downtime slash, which is the double sign slash. Now that's usually 5% of your stake. So that can be a significant amount of money. I doubt that validators that are advertising slash protection would even be able to pay out a 5% double sign slash out of their liquid funds. Um, and it would be something that would be interesting to see, honestly. Now that's a double sign. That's like something seriously went wrong. So it's justified to take that much, in my opinion.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. So a lot of our validators continue to validate on the Luna Classic chain when the defect
Mhm.
happened. Were you involved in it?
I'm not. I wasn't involved in Terra. The only involvement that I had with Terra was that I was relaying between Osmosis and Terra, and mostly I was doing that after all the other relayers had abandoned it because of the collapse. Um, there was there was days that I was spending like $20 a day, like on fees clearing IBC packets for Terra, um, and I didn't get any reimbursement from that, but that's besides the point. Uh, I didn't have any involvement with that personally. I think it's difficult for the Terra validators who were on Terra and are now out not and are now on Terra 2. But I also think that you got to have like a moral line at some point. That like Terra was kind of obviously a scam, and it's now super obviously a scam at this point. And so if you're still validating there and supporting it, I kind of am questioning your I'm questioning how much you really, care about what you're saying, because are you really just running your validators for profit, or do you really care about, protecting users? And
Okay, let us talk about moral. So recently, Osmosis had a bug. I mean, like a lot of us knows about the
mm,
bug. It's a huge bug, simple huge bug. And what is your opinion on the responsibility of auditing the chain code? Is it the sole responsibility of the developer? Do validators play a role in that? What do you think the spectrum of that responsibility?
oh wow. Well, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but a couple months ago, maybe a month or so ago, there was actually something similar that happened with not as bad, but with the Juno upgrade when they were moving the funds from the whale. So at that time, there was an upgrade in the chain, and they accidentally sent millions of dollars that they were removing from a supposedly malicious party to a random address because somebody had copied and pasted something wrong. Now, I mean, it's not as it wasn't as impactful as the bug on osmosis, but it's similar in my opinion in that people could have caught it, people should have seen it, and they didn't. Now, when that happened, people were saying, well, 66% of the voting power, the validators, they have to vote to pass an upgrade. So they intentionally or unintentionally voted yes to create the bug in the first place. And back then, when it happened to Juno, I did agree with them. Uh, that the validators, I mean, somebody should have looked. But now, similar situation has happened to me. I voted yes on osmosis, and the bug happened. So I guess I bear that same responsibility. I passed a bad upgrade. Um, and it feels bad. But it probably feels even worse to be the guy who edited the code in the first place. I mean, I really think that
I
we definitely need we definitely need more oversight. But every validator is not a coder. Even if you're an excellent validator, a system administrator, a network technician, anything like that, that doesn't even necessarily going to mean you're going to be able to read the code. And Cosmos chains are usually written in Golang, which is something that not even a lot of coders are familiar with. It's hard finding Cosmos devs because there's not a lot of familiarity with Go out there. So it would be cool to have some kind of validator council, maybe like I don't know, people or independent review team, somebody that's outside of the team that can provide like an oversight, like an independent review, and provide that as like an opinion to validators, whether they should vote yes or no on upgrade code. I think that would be something that would be really useful for networks to use. A community pool spend could be spent on something like that, for example, or even validator profits could be spent on something like that, because you're really securing the chain. You don't want to be just voting yes on like you know buggy code basically. And now, actually, on Evmos, we have a upgrade proposal up for upgrade to V5. And now I'm thinking, what do I do now? Am I going to vote yes on another buggy upgrade?
Yeah, that's a huge dilemma, I guess, for a lot of validators. So let us go to something slightly more technical. As we know, atom or cosmos is the so-called layer zero, or the store of value in the cosmos ecosystem, though debatable. Now we have like atom version 2 run by
Debatable.
everything. But okay, just go for atom. Do you think proof of stake could serve as the store of value or the layer one on an ecosystem? Or do you think it works better with the proof of work technology?
Oh, I don't think I don't think that the consensus mechanism is as important for whether something is a store of value. People say Bitcoin is decentralized. The chain can't be stopped by a group of validators, for example, or reversed, halted, forked, whatever. Um, and yeah, that's fine. But Bitcoin itself is centralized. The holdings of Bitcoin, for example, a lot of it is held in exchanges, and a lot of it is held by a small group of whales. So I would say that decentralized holdings and decentralized governance, decentralized validating, decentralized consensus is the most important. Whether it's proof of work or proof of stake. Um, I just think that decentralization is really just the way to go, because the more power that one party has, the more power that party is able to give to themselves, and it just corrupts. It's not something that's really easily identifiable, even when you see it yourself. But it's just human nature to take more for yourself, basically. I mean, people feel that they're justified to do that. I mean, sometimes they are, but um, like the with the osmosis bug, there was a validator who he wasn't an osmosis validator, but he made $2 million off of the bug. Um, he said that he was testing it and then got carried away when he found out that he could make $2 million off of it. And I mean, yeah, I mean at that point you're standing there, with $2 million in your hand, like your morals are gonna get pretty conflicted at that point.
Yeah.
Um, but that's not the question. The question was, what is the best store of value? I don't know. The best store of value is whatever people believe in, you know?
Okay. Now you mentioned about decentralization. Let's say we have a decentralization scale. Jacob Jacobian as the as a score of 10 and Binance as a score of 1. Where do you see Coldy sits?
Oh, I mean, I'm like fully decentralized. I'm like I'm running my validator in my house. It
Yeah.
doesn't get much more decentralized than this. I'm working on a way to run a validator on a cell phone, so that might be like the most ultimately decentralized. Uh, but I really think that. So here's an example. There's a lot of Cosmos validators that use a data center called Hetzner in Germany. It's very well known because they're very good and they have very competitive prices, and very decent equipment. But what that means is that a lot of validators just get concentrated there,
Yeah.
um, because
Like,
it's great for them. So I refuse to use this data center. I would use any other data center I would in the world, I guess, except for them. And I always advise people, just don't use Hetzner. A million people are already in there, and if that data center goes down, we're gonna see like pretty huge issues across like multiple Cosmos chains, maybe even like on networks like Ethereum, on other crypto networks as well, because other people know about the stuff as well. Like
yeah.
that data center could be a choke point of multiple networks and ecosystems.
I think this is the same issue with Solana, where a lot of the validators are staying and sitting on AWS, if not mistaken, right? Something like that. Okay.
Yeah,
Before we end our session today, something a bit of a jolly and relax. Someone says here, your story inspired us with good vibes. So last question, what are your top 5 favorite crypto coins?
my favorite coins.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, well, I gotta rate number one as Adam because that's the one that really brought me into the whole thing. Um, Number two, I'm gonna say uh, I'm gonna say Osmosis because that was my baby and that's how I got started. Uh, Number three, I'll put Bitcoin at number three. I'm not a huge fan of Bitcoin, but I gotta recognize, that it's important. Number four, I'm gonna go with Evmos because I'm so pleased with the progress that I'm seeing with Evmos, honestly, and it's really fulfilling the dream of like bringing the Ethereum like EVM and Ethereum users like to Cosmos. Like they already have a Uniswap clone. They're gonna get some more like EVM. They got the Gnosis multi-sig on there. They're gonna get a lot more Ethereum dApps on there soon. That's awesome. And um, for number five, that's a tough one. Um, for number five, I'm gonna go with USDC right now because we're we're in a little bit of a downturn and gotta be safe. I'm just gonna
Oh,
I'm just gonna leave it at that.
so top 5 would be Atom, Osmosis, Bitcoin, FMOS, and USDC. All right. Who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
some of listeners would buy some of the coin today, forget it, and like 10 years later become one of the next billionaires. Amen.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are at the end of our session today. Before we end our class, do you have any take home message for our listeners or viewers?
Yeah, I mean, my message to you guys is like, if you guys want to make a validator, go for it. I'll help you. I always want to see more decentralization. I don't like seeing how everything just the power gets concentrated at the top. And there are really a lot of people working on changing that. So more smaller validators coming into the game are going to have a lot more advantages in the next coming months, hopefully. A group of validators are working on changing, for example, the way the staking UIs work. Like we're going to rearrange them so the biggest validator isn't at the top, because by default that just concentrates the power up there. But we really just want to make it easier for people to find and invest in smaller validators who are really bringing like good to the ecosystem. So please, guys, if you want to do it, like, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Coldchain, for the very inspiring sharing session with us. Not to be forgotten, for those who are going to attend Malaysia Super Fleet State course on the 23rd July 2022, Coldy is also one of our preferred validator and contributor to the program. So don't forget, whenever you want to stake, you want to do Super Fleet Stake, you want to put your LP pool, choose Coldy Validator from the list. Thank you everyone who are listening. Thank you everyone who are sharing here. We are going to have our next class next week. Till then, take care. Assalamualaikum and bye-bye.
Yes. Right.